looking back at it now, I was led down a completely different pathway. I was gaslit for the first time in healthcare. I was still told the wrong information, even when I was soliciting the right information. And that really was the journey to me getting healthy and owning that journey, because if I wouldn't have owned that journey, I would have been divorced. And it certainly wouldn't have prompted us and created this spark to start these businesses.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Relaunch Podcast. And yet again, delivering on so many critical things that you listening today are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed to hear today. And why is this so important? Because the hottest topic in today's world is actually around your health, but more the health of women specifically and their needs, and the health of men and specifically their needs. And today I've got not just one, but one from each of these wonderful genders. And best part about it, oh, they're married. And we're going to hear about the journey that Josh and Katy have gone through to create a business around making sure that you get the necessary information right in the spot, right when you need it. And guess what they've done? They've built this up, I believe, in the last 3 years to a $25 million run rate. Can we just see like the drums are playing? The band is like going all over the field. But why did they start it is really the most important part of today's conversation. It's always the relaunches that lead us to making those most impactful marks on your business and your personal life. So again, super excited to have both Josh and Katy Whalen here today and hearing about the company Joi, Choose Joi, and also Blokes. So welcome, you guys. This is something I have been like so excited to have you on this show. So we got to dive in, okay?
Let's do it. We are ready. Thank you so much for having us.
Let's roll.
Like no holes barred here. We're going to like literally. And so what I usually do is I usually start with the woman, and I like to hear the journey and then bring in the man. But guess what I'm going to do today? I'm going to switch it up because I think it is so relevant to hear from you, Josh, first, because this is where it all began. So Josh, let us know the most critical relaunch that you have gone through that led you to where you are today.
Well, it's very short. She was going to divorce me. And
I love that. Okay, that's it. That's it, everyone. No, we got to get to the bottom of why was Katy going to divorce you?
This is the genesis of our company. Katy was going to divorce me, and this is when we were living in Denver, and I had become a different person than when we first got married. I was 50 pounds heavier. I had no sex drive. I had not seen the inside of a gym and God knows how long. And being an ex-athlete, that was something that was important to me at one point. Sex was important to me at one point. Body image was important to me at one point. And I just lost my way. I had been an executive in healthcare I've been in healthcare now 16 years. I worked for Stryker for about 5 of those years. So I was a med device guy, and then I was an entrepreneur. And I forgot that health should have been a priority, not just work and not, I lived this work hard, play hard thing. And somehow or another, my health and prioritizing that health lost its way. And I'm sitting here.
Josh, really quick.
Yep.
My audience knows this about me. I'm going to immediately go to, you lost your sex drive. You're a young guy, right?
42.
And 42.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right now like admitting to the world that, hey, my sex drive was way off. And so when you say that out loud and your wife was, thinking about divorcing you, how much did the sex play a part in how you felt about yourself?
That's a great question. I will tell you, it didn't matter at that time. Because as an individual who doesn't have that drive, male or female, it doesn't matter. It's not important. And usually it's a chronic issue. It happens over time. Like you just chronically start to develop less and less of that drive. Sometimes there are instances where there's a major event in your life, physically, mentally, where you go, okay, I don't have it anymore. But for me, it was years in the making, and the only way I can actually look back at that moment is how I feel now. Now I have a great sex drive, maybe sometimes too much in some instances. Katy would say,
we'll ask Katy if it's
yeah.
out.
In layman's terms, it would be like, if you've never tried a food, you don't know what it was like. All of a sudden, you try this really amazing food, and you're like, "Oh my God, how did I miss this my whole life?" That was the eye-opening thing for me once my sex drive was restored. And then I realized, God, it's beyond sex. It's about connection. It's about our relationship. It's about so many things around you that happen just easier. I mean, people don't realize that there's so many things that are happening from having sex, and endorphins that are being released, just pain, so many emotional and physical things that are accomplished through it. It's not just the act, but the connection piece. Once it was restored, our marriage improved so much. And me as a man, I love talking about this because so many men are going through this, so many women are going through this, and they have to step back and take a hard look in the mirror and say, hey, is something wrong? Is this need, is this want, this desire there? And for me, I realized, man, I was on the cusp of a divorce because of it. And then once that eye-opening experience happened of getting it restored, I was like, Jesus, man, I really was different. And I really realized how bad it was for her and our marriage to not have that drive.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, I want to weave in Katy's story now versus going into some of the specifics of what you just said, because I think it's so critical to hear Katy's side, Katy's version of what was going on for you at that same time.
Well, at that point, we were newly married and we were trying to have babies. And so for me, that was like my focus. I was a 36-year-old woman, like ready to start my family. And all of a sudden, when he had no interest, I was like, wait, what's going on? Is it me? Like, I've gained weight. We had several miscarriages, so it was very stressful. So for me, I was like, he doesn't find me attractive anymore. He doesn't want this family like I want it. What's going on? What changed? And it was hard on me emotionally, that wasn't there, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I couldn't fix it. And, as women, we're always trying to fix things. And I tried harder to fix this than most things in my life. I was making lists for him and I was doing different things for him. I was giving him ultimatums. We went to counseling and it was just nothing was working.
This is such a powerful story that people are going to be just like, oh my gosh, because we don't know what's going on many times in the marriage. And Katy, you're thinking like, oh my God, is it me? Right. And Josh, what were you thinking? Were you thinking like, when she said, hey, I'm not sure this marriage is working, how did that come across the table?
Well, I was pretty damn close to accepting it. I was pretty close to accepting the fact that I had 2 babies with her and that there was maybe some issues with attraction and there was some issues with me. And what's crazy is we did have some traumatic events. The miscarriages really messed me up, like especially our first one. It was like, man, I really, there was a piece of connection that was lost there. And then it progressively got worse, but not at one point when we're seeing doctors, OBGYNs, marriage counselors, friends, family, not at one point did anybody go, Josh, go get your hormones checked out, dude. Like, you've gained a bunch of weight and you don't have a sex drive. Like, maybe something else is off. And then what was remarkable is, even when I got to the right person that was checking my hormones, looking back at it now, I was led down a completely different pathway. I was, from my definition, gaslit for the first time in healthcare. And I was told the wrong information. I was still told the wrong information, even when I was soliciting the right information. And that really was, you know, the journey to me getting healthy, and owning that journey. Because if I wouldn't have owned that journey, I would have been divorced. And it certainly wouldn't have prompted us and you know, created this spark to start these businesses.
Well, Josh, welcome to the world of being a woman around perimenopause and menopause, and being told, no, 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 you're fine. All those symptoms, oh no, they're isolated, right?
Mm.
And you are literally the first person that I have spoken to as a man who said, hey, nobody was asking, like, hey, Josh, have you had your hormones checked? It's always the woman, right? Like, well, premenopause, perimenopause, hormonal imbalance because you've had, you know, the miscarriages and everything, Katy. I mean, this is so incredible that in two ways, you guys are both going down a similar path, and you're really trying to figure it out, and you don't know where to go. But this is also where you both decided that there was something that happened to create Joi Wellness. And I know I gave the two different sites, and we're going to find out more about those later. But Joi Wellness came really out of initially your journey, Josh. And then Katy ended up doing some pretty like interesting things around what you were doing. Can you walk us through, one of you? I don't know who wants to take it, but it's really an incredible like discovery.
Well, I want to just start it, because I think this is really important in our story. We had our miscarriages, and Katy got done breastfeeding our son. And
Mhm.
for the first time, I was actually feeling good, and I was feeling optimized, and my sex drive was restored. I was in the gym. And then after all the breastfeeding and Katy's time to start, you know, her own getting back to herself, she lost her sex drive. And I was like, holy shit, this is happening to both of us. Like, now I'm getting healthy, and you know, she's going down a different pathway. So for me, it was pretty remarkable to see and feel like the coin was on the other side.
Mm.
And that was really when you decided to take your own action.
Yeah, I mean, so long story short, Josh started Blokes first based on his journey. He was ahead of me in terms of when he had his hormonal issues. He was ahead of me in terms of starting to feel better after he got help. And that was the time where I was, you know, going through all the trauma of trying to have babies and having miscarriages and doing all the IVF stuff, and then finally having them when I was, you know, in my early 40s, which I feel like is a pretty common story now. But for women, it's very hard to do all of that later in life and then go straight into perimenopause. So for me, I was, you know, 42, 43, and feeling so thankful that I now had the babies that I wanted so badly. But then also on the flip side, I was like, I don't, who am I now? Like, I don't feel good.
Mhm.
I don't have the energy to take care of them. And so at that point, Josh had already started the men's side of the business, and that was all it was going to be, just for men. And then I needed help. So I went through the men's side, and
Hold on. That is so cool.
yeah.
What you just said, that Josh, and I want to hear more about what it really is, this whole men's side and bloke and all that. But you decided to go through the men's protocol of what, and then that all of a sudden the light bulb went off, and you're like, wait a second, the same protocol could work for women. So
Well,
let's dive deep into that one.
well, the reality is, like, I had so much help getting pregnant, trying to stay pregnant, having my babies. And then when I was a mess, there was no help. There was nothing. Like, what is it for women in that stage of life after they're done having babies, when they're in their 40s, when things start to go haywire? There was nothing. And so I had seeing Josh get better and see him feeling better and start getting all his mojo back just when I was like, wait a minute, what do I do? And so I was lucky that he had been through it, and he had created a solution for it. So I literally went through the men's program. I got a big deep dive lab. One of the first things I started on was testosterone replacement therapy. And that's something I didn't at that point even know women could do or needed. And so just all of those things and processes that I went through, at the end of the day, I felt like I had almost stumbled upon a magic pill. And I was like, whoa, women need this. This is like, who cares about the men? Like, women deserve to feel better.
It's helping me. So Josh, interesting here. How did you piece this all together?
It was really just my personal, call it, struggle to personal development. I went through the standard channels of seeing a primary care doc and internal med doc. And as I mentioned earlier, I was gaslit. I was like, listen, you're in your 30s, you're fine, go home. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing you need to do. And that obviously didn't feel right. It didn't sit right. I told Katy, and we're like, oh no. I think the best thing that happened in the process was I found a solution, and we identified the problem and we corrected it. And that was just getting healthy again and looking at, biomarkers and testosterone and peptides in a new and unique way, to where it was like, hey, we're not going to just live in the standard range. We're going to find what is best for you. And that's how you're going to live. You're going to live in this optimal fashion. And, when we started this was 4 years ago before we even started it. This was me going through my personal struggles. So that the struggles and then the actual changes and the development that changed in me physically and mentally was like, oh man. And I've been an entrepreneur in healthcare for, a long time. And I was like, man, it seems too simple to actually think about and do. Like, if I know how to navigate these turbulent healthcare waters, and I think I'm a pretty reasonable consumer. I'm not like, I don't ask for too much. I don't ask for too little. Like, I just want it to work. If I'm going through those issues, how many other people are going through those same issues? And then just throughout the process, it was like, man, it was cumbersome. I had to drive 40 minutes to Golden to see this guy. And then I had to go to LabCorp, and then I had to go back to see him. And it was just like, I thought it could be done easier. I thought it could be more convenient. And we then just decided, like, hey, listen, we're 60-70% of the way mentally in terms of how this could actually feel and look. Why not just do it? And we did. And we took a little bit of a chance or a lot of chance. And we just embarked on this journey to help men at the time. And then we realized pretty quickly, like, man, we left off this really important consumer in females. And then we realized they were probably more neglected than men, and they still are.
So would you say there is a name for, we call it with women, perimenopause, menopause? Is there the equivalent for men? And what would you call it?
Well, there is something called menopause, and it's a very similar thing. You would, by clinical definition, call what I went through hypogonadism, which is the true definition of low testosterone, and women can have the same issue. But it really is just the way we look at it. It's just, we have a slogan, feel better, live longer. Like, you should feel better now. And because of that, you're going to live longer. And we truly feel that our healthcare system, and this is a broken record, is broken when it comes to preventative and proactive care. And we sit right in the middle of preventative and proactive care. And we just happen to think the catalyst to feeling better and living longer is optimized hormones. So we look at everything from a hormonal perspective and how we can make those hormones more optimized.
So let's hear, Katy, how do you go about doing this? Because there's a lot of businesses on the market. What is that competitive sweet spot of what you're doing versus everyone else?
I feel like I think my biggest mission is, well, I guess two things: provide the education, because I think that's pretty lacking out there. First of all, people need to know. You need to know, like, what you're feeling is something, and that you could maybe feel better. And then I think the other thing is access. there are options for you. Like right now, our system is very disjointed. So someone in a city probably has a lot better access to a clinic than somewhere, in a rural Nebraska, let's say. So my job and my mission is to provide that education and then that access as well. So people, I really believe women especially need to own their own health journey and decide for themselves what is right for them. But in order to do that, they need those things and they need the tools to understand, I could do this or this, what's right for me.
Well, I like where you're going because, as you said, it's proactive. There's a lot of supplements on the market right now for men and women. And there's so many things that are starting to bombard us in the marketplace, like take this, take that. But until you take that first test and understand hormonal imbalances, that's where it all starts, right? Or is there more there? Is there more there in this process that Josh came up with that now you're doing for women that really sets you apart?
I will say we do think labs are a really great place to start. We do these really big, deep dive, proactive labs. And what you can tell from that is just so many different things. So we'll go through, our comprehensive lab is like 77 biomarkers. And so you can kind of go, okay, this is off, this looks great, maybe you can do this. And from that lab and then walking through it with an expert that knows what they're doing, there's options. It may be something as simple as a supplement or a lifestyle change, or, hey, you need to work on your cortisol and your stress. But then it also could be something bigger that could really be life-changing for you, like, working on your hormone, optimization. Or we also have these cool things called peptides. So bottom line is there's a lot of options, but we think a great place to start is a lab so that you can kind of get the whole picture and kind of go deeper.
And are these labs that you go to, do they come to your house, package it? Like what's involved there?
Go ahead, babe.
There's a few options. I mean, we're partnered with LabCorp and Quest, so we can send you to about 4,000 different draw stations throughout the country. So access is really accessible. And then we have a partner company that can service about 70% of the country in terms of going to your home. I will tell you, like we're talking about the labs being that foundational tool. I think that's really important. And I'll give you just like an example. I was at a party a couple years ago before we got into supplements, because we feel we've created an ecosystem for solutions that are based off your biomarkers. But the party was really simple, and why we decided to go this route and supplements. And I just asked a lot of athletes and a lot of our ambassadors, said, why do you take this supplement? How do you know it's working? How do you know, you know, what's in it is good for you? And that's where the labs come into play. If you can even supplement with precision that are based solely off your biomarkers, supplementation all of a sudden takes a new approach. It's like getting a shot in the arm with the right supplements. And then if you want to take it a step further, we have options that are prescription-based therapies. But we have built an ecosystem that meets you where you are at in the process or the journey. And it starts with labs to supplementation to hormone optimization to peptides, all kinds of fun things. But I think it's important to note how precise labs can make even your supplement routine.
Okay, so this takes me to misconceptions in the industry about hormonal health. What are you hearing, and what just causes you to cringe when you're like, no, that's such misinformation?
Well, the biggest thing for women is that, hormones cause cancer, like something that's natural in our body is causing cancer for us. So that's just a ginormous one that we're all trying to work through and, kind of erase some of that damage. And then also the other one for women is testosterone, that it's just a man's hormone. And I will tell you, like, that is one thing I will not give up, because it's been so helpful for me in making me not just about sex drive, helping me clear my brain fog, helping me get energy and motivation. It's a wonderful hormone that, all humans need.
And women have more testosterone than they do estrogen. And women don't know that.
So I have to ask, what's causing the depletion? I mean, the fact that your business is skyrocketing right now. I mean,
Yeah.
what's going on in the world that
Like,
this
what is
is
not
so
going on in the world? I mean,
yeah.
we talk about how, when you asked about misconceptions, one thing that's also very interesting is that people say, well, I don't want to take hormones because they're not natural. But what's crazy is I believe what's causing our business and others like us to boom is that our worlds are so unnatural, from the screens that we're on, from the stress that we're under, from the, understanding all this, like these crises in the world, and food that we have, and our soil being depleted, and the plastics that we're constantly exposed to. Our worlds are so unnatural that we're seeing this big disruption in our hormones. And all this stuff is endocrine disruptors. So it's sad. It's good for our business, but it's very sad that that's just the world we live in, and I don't see that going away anytime soon, unfortunately.
We have to acknowledge too, just like what's happened over the last 50 years, and we have to acknowledge like where we were 50 years ago to where we are now, and our food system is a complete, it's a very big issue. I mean, the ultra processed foods that we are all living on, the amount of stress that we're under from so many different other vices. And if you look at any antagonist to just optimize testosterone for men or women, it's an increase in cortisol. It's high stress. It's a lack of sleep and recovery. It's foods that we're eating on a regular basis. It's the plastics around us. All that is destroying us. And it's interesting because we are fighting big food. We are fighting big pharma. We are fighting big insurance that makes a ton of money off of people who are sick and not feeling healthy. And that's ultimately why we're here, because people are ready to take a stand. They're ready to live healthier lives. I think COVID helped open that door a little bit to virtual care and just like, hey, what is going on in my body that I need to fix? And you're starting to see this, which I admire, this small coup of people who are standing up, that have influence, that are going to DC and they're saying, hey, Kellogg's, you shouldn't have this in your cereal. Like, why when I cross the border to Canada, do they have different processed foods and different chemicals in there than we do? Like, there's something fundamentally wrong with our society because of the big foods and because of the big insurance and because of big pharma.
Well, the other day, my husband and I were watching a TV show, and it was on a major network, and we always watch the replay. And this time we didn't. We caught it live. I could not believe how many pharmaceutical commercials there were. I mean, out of, let's say, 5, 4 were pushing some type of drug. So when you talk about supplements and your product, your regime, this process that you put together, people are getting concerned about too many supplements and how many is the right number. What do you say to them? And then also I want to ask you, are these supplements in the form of a pill, liquid, shot? Like how do you distribute it?
I think there's a couple things. If you're strictly talking about like the over-the-counter supplements, what we do with that is just we look at your biomarkers and say, what's the top deficiencies you have there? And then we'll package them into one daily sachet for you. So that kind of takes the guesswork out of just the supplements. But then, other things that you're talking about is more like prescription-based therapies like hormones or peptides. And that, we certainly don't want to overwhelm people with. And that's where we start with like, what's the biggest thing that's going to make the biggest impact for you? And most of the time for most people, that's probably a hormone. And again, but that's a conversation to have with your clinician and with your coach to decide like, what's going to make, be the biggest bang for my buck here.
I do want to say that we're not like anti-pharma. Like I think pharmacological intervention is important at the right place at the right time, and everybody is different in that process. There are things that are physically going to happen to a man and a woman that supplements in some instances just can't course correct. for example, menopause, and for example, men as they're aging, low T that comes into play. You can live a very natural and healthy life and check all the boxes, but there could be things that are just working against you. And that is the time and place where maybe a pharmaceutical product comes into play. Where we differ with Big Pharma is we are focused on getting you as healthy as possible through diagnostic labs, through supplementation, through pharmacological intervention. We just think testosterone is one of those things that does it really, really well. The fortunate thing is testosterone is pretty inexpensive, and it does so many things in so many different ways and so well for both men and women.
Okay. So here I always like to think about the future of the future. So the relaunch that you are going to be doing as we grow, where do you see the wellness industry going, and where specifically do you see Joi Wellness going with it?
I really hope that the whole, wellness and industry is really more consumer driven. I want it to be, hey, this is what we want, and it's not dictated by insurance or dictated by a white coat that says, keeps you kind of in the dark about your options. I really think that that's coming, and I don't know how far it is out, but that's why you're seeing companies like ours come up, is that people are like, this isn't working for me. I want something different.
That brings a point of insurance, right? And a lot of this is out of pocket. How are you, as you look forward and trying to help with getting these things? And I don't know if Joi Wellness, if any part of this is covered by insurance, and what are you doing around getting this to be one of the things that, yep, this is part of just, companies should be doing this for their employees.
We have a few different philosophies on this, but I think one of the things that consumers have to just mentally shift is insurance doesn't always mean good. Insurance doesn't always mean it's in there for my benefit. And being in healthcare for so long, working in med devices and hospitals, owning and operating my own clinics that took insurance, that didn't take insurance, I've seen both sides of the coin. But for some reason, insurance has not seemed to wrap their head around preventative and proactive care. I think the reason is because they make so much less money. There's an algorithm and there's a lot of data behind sick patients, but there's none behind healthy and preventable and proactive patients that are not going through that system. So I think, like, for us, it's really just trying to educate the audience on the value that we're providing and why it's not covered by insurance. I hope over time that there will be pathways to allow this, but testosterone's been around for years, and especially for men, we can all admit that. But you're seeing massive carriers like Blue Cross Blue Shield not covering this for any hypogonadism cases. That's a true definition of a low T. They'll cover it if you had a major incident such as cancer or some autoimmune issue where you're pretty much damn near dying and you need it. But they have not seemed to wrap their head around this side. I imagine when consumers build a big enough audience and in a big enough market on this preventative and proactive care side, they're going to want to get their toes in, and they're probably going to just start buying and scooping up companies like us versus like trying to reinvent the wheel. But it's a very convoluted system, and we've talked to carriers, we've talked to groups that are trying to bring this in their ecosystem, and they're just like, I'm confused. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing. I think people are really interested in, if I go down this path and I start doing the suggestions that you all are encouraging people, how soon can I see the results? And is it different for men and women?
I can tell you this, everybody's different, man or woman. Every human is going to have a different experience. We've had reports back from men that are, I'm seeing something in a week. I'm seeing something in 3 months. We typically say, before you're really at that optimal state, there's a lot of dialing in from the labs, and that's where the clinicians and the health coaches really come into play. But we say no less than 90 days up to 6 months to where you're fully starting to feel the effects of the therapies and the changes that we're making. but some patients feel it really quickly. Like we call those hyper responders. For me, my personal experience was about 60 days before I was like, oh, wow, this is working. And then what was yours? I mean, you pretty quick
Well,
as well.
yeah. I mean, one interesting thing about women is usually the first thing that happens to us when we're going through perimenopause is that our progesterone declines. And this happened for me as well. So I can tell you it was, and our progesterone is our calming hormone. So it helps you with your mood and anxiety and sleep. And I remember, I don't know if you remember
I do.
the first time
Right,
I took my
100%.
first.
He's like, hell yeah, I do.
No, but I mean, I remember the day and where I was. It was like I took it right before bed, and oh my God, I was like, whoa. And I slept through the night for the first time in I don't know how long. So I can tell you, like, some things you'll feel right away, and progesterone for me and a lot of other women, that is one of them. But yeah, it depends on what the therapy is and how bad you need it. But some of it's pretty quick.
I feel like every couple, like one of the first things they ask their spouse is like, how'd you sleep? I mean, we do that.
It's so true. I just did that with my husband
Yeah.
this morning. I'm like, E, how'd you sleep? And he's like, I didn't sleep so well. I'm like, I didn't either.
Yeah. It's almost like a check-in for like, how's the day going to go? Like, how can I press
That's
your
what I
button?
said. I said, okay, we both had a crappy night of sleep. This is not going to dictate
No,
how we're going to have like the day I'm going to have. I'm like, no way, not today.
I'm with you. Like I've developed this like drive of like, I don't care how I'm going to sleep. I'm just going to get through it. I'm going to be positive. But I do remember asking her that question after she took progesterone for the first time. And she was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
I slept through the night. And it was pretty profound because I feel like through all of our pregnancies, through even, you know, after we had the kids and they're alive, because you never sleep again as a parent. I feel like we struggled with that for like 5, 6, 7 years. And then all of a sudden she got this progesterone. It was like, oh my God, what the hell have I been missing? I mean, I'm looking for that solution as a man, but it was pretty profound. So I remember the exact day, the exact, you know, where we're at, the whole 9 yards.
Josh, Katy, this has been such an interesting conversation. I'm so glad you came on to the Relaunch podcast. Where can people find out about these incredible solutions and actually get their biomarkers, their testosterone check, their peptides check? Where can they go?
You know, for women, I would say, first of all, follow us at Joi Women's Wellness on Instagram. And Joi is spelled Joi. And then our website is choosejoy.co. And I will tell you, a really wonderful place for women to start is we offer a very affordable $99 lab that includes 45 biomarkers and your follow-up with a clinician. So I would say that's a great place if anyone really is going like, where do I start?
And so it's really Choose Joi, and the Joi is JOI, and you said .co.
Yep.
.co, everyone. And you can start with this kind of beginning package just to get, you know, the markers and understand where your deficiencies are. And then for men, Josh, where can they go?
Blokes.co. And then our Instagram handles where a lot of education happens, a lot of community love. And that's at Get Blokes, and Blokes is BLOKES. But yeah, I think to Katy's point, like we've made our entry point labs so affordable. I mean, it's like getting 2 drinks at a bar anymore. It's $99, and you're going to get a really, really deep dive. I mean, it's 45 biomarkers to include all the really great biomarkers for sexual hormones. And then I think, when you add in that one-on-one consult with a clinician, it's a very, very hard price to beat, but it's going to give you a really deep dive into your health.
Wow, what a conversation. And thank you for bringing light to, first off, Josh, your situation and what you were going through, because I think just men listening to this conversation are going to not only understand themselves, but also the women in their lives. And Katy, you know what, when you start talking about the hormones and what as women we go through, and both men and women being told, you know what, just go back home. You're okay. We don't want to, worry about problems that, you're okay. It's not debilitating to such a degree that you're still able to do the things, but no, it's affecting relationships with yourself and with others in your life, and imagine where you could be, as you said, whether it's in 30 days, 60 days. I mean, we just have to take ownership of ourselves. So thank you for putting the spotlight on that. And until next week, everyone, this becomes even more important. Live now, love now, relaunch now, relaunch into the best version of your own wellness and your health. And we'll see you again next week. Take care. Unbelievable.
Beautiful.
Unbelievable.
Now, do you have that like written, or do you just have that remember? Are you?
Well, no, what I do is I read what all the different things that they put, and then I kind of say, now what do I really believe people need to hear? And then you guys just lead me like,
Amazing.
wow, the story, how you do it was awesome.
That was fun.
No, you're great at that. That was
Thank you
awesome.
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, honestly, you have to be sharing this. And I love the perspective of the men versus the women. It's so important versus just like, a lot of times we just go down that one path of the woman and the health. And Josh, you're bringing this whole thing out there that, men need to hear, and it's okay. And it's like really important. And how much and I love, Katy, your part about like, well, I just figure like he's doing much better. I need to like jump on the bandwagon. So really cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We love sharing it.
Yeah. If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here.